It's nearly the end of the year, and it's about that time when we start talking about all the things that we're gonna do next year, all the things we're gonna achieve, all the ways we're gonna upgrade our life. But in this video, I want to propose something different. What if you started creating momentum for next year now? That way, you've got momentum, you've got the ball rolling by the time that New Year comes around. And if that is the headspace that you're also in, you're like, yes, I want to do something with this time. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about things that you can do to create even more motivation, even more focus, to upgrade your life before next year. Because in the same way that you can create like Christmassy energy by decorating and going at carols, you can create New Year motivated energy by doing specific things. Idea number 1. Imagine if you had a fridge that you never cleaned out, you never organized, and you never decluttered. You would hit a point where you just wouldn't want to open the fridge because you wouldn't know what was edible, you wouldn't know what was off. You'd feel overwhelmed just looking at it. You'd probably reach a point where you'd be like, maybe I should just buy a new fridge. The same thing applies to whatever productivity tool that you use, whether it's Milanote, Notion, ClickUp. If you have to-dos, project plans, ideas in your apps that are from a year ago that are now stale, moldy, it's a lot like having old containers of food in your fridge. If you don't get rid of them, eventually you're gonna start to feel gross about opening your fridge or opening your productivity app. And then you'll start to feel gross about the app as a whole, and that's when you'll start being like, you know what I need? A new productivity app, which is a huge waste of time when you could instead just clean out the app that you use. To set yourself up before the end of the year, do a massive clean out of your to-do app of choice and treat it just like you would a deep clean of your fridge. Idea number 2. The law of the vital few, otherwise known as the 80-20 rule, states that 80% of your consequences come from 20% of causes. So 20% of the work that you do gets you 80% of the recognition from your team and your boss. 20% of your interpersonal relationship behaviors cause 80% of your relationship problems. To create focus and upgrade your life before the end of the year, what you want to focus on are the 20% of tasks that cause 80% of your wasted time. If you ask nearly anyone why they didn't achieve a certain goal, why they're not doing certain behaviors they said they want to do, the most common answer is going to be, I just don't have the time. And legitimately, some people don't have the time, like these people. But most of us sit outside of these groups, and when we say, I don't have the time, what we're really saying is, I'm busy wasting time doing other stuff, like spending 2 hours on TikTok after work or checking email 20 times a day. Idea number 3. Imagine you're making 10 meals for 10 people, you're all on your own, and you're also doing all of the ordering and serving. Some meals are gonna get burned, some are gonna go cold, some you're gonna do wrong. That is what happens when you take on too many goals. What I'm about to propose may be a lot for some people, but if you can swing it from here on out, pick just one goal that you want to achieve by the end of the year. Just one. There are 2 reasons to do this. Number 1, it builds self-trust. This is especially important if you're someone who hasn't achieved many goals recently and you feel like you're not someone that follows through. If you don't have self-trust, it's something you want to prioritize before next year begins. The next thing it does is it creates momentum. If by the end of the year you have achieved this one goal, you're going to be like, yes, I'm ready to keep on going. It's way harder to start from nothing than to build on something. Idea number 4. An idea that I always go back to is from Daniel Kahneman, a Nobel Prize winner, a psychologist, an expert in decision making. And if you start applying this advice before the end of the year, you get into the habit of using this technique, it's going to make a big difference when your new year kicks off. So Kahneman once said that the best advice that he'd heard in psychology was this idea that instead of asking, how can I drive this behavior, we should be asking, why am I not doing this already? I use this idea all the time. Whenever I'm making any kind of change in my life, I go back to that question. So for example, I recently was like, hey, I need to start eating more vegetables. I could ask, how could I get myself to eat more veggies? But instead I was like, why am I not eating more veggies already? When I paid attention, it turned out all the stuff that I needed to roast veggies, which is my favorite way of making them, was scattered all throughout the kitchen. So it felt really annoying to roast any vegetables. So I moved the locations of things, I put things in arm's reach, and now I'm eating more veggies. If I'd instead asked, what could I do to eat more vegetables? I could have gone down so many pointless routes. I could have bought an air fryer, I could have tried a bunch of new seasonings, and none of it would have solved my problem. For the rest of the year, if you notice that that goal that you've set for yourself isn't going so well, ask yourself the question, why am I not doing this? What's blocking me? Idea number 5. So there's this really interesting thing that people do around their birthday, around New Year's, where they set a bunch of goals for themselves and then they expect their future self to find the time to work on those goals. And it naturally doesn't work, and then we're shocked, and then we blame ourselves, and it's this whole cycle. Which is why the next way to upgrade your life before the end of the year is to create or update your weekly planning routine so that working on your goals happens naturally. If you already have a weekly planning routine, which a lot of you probably do, ask yourself that question of why am I not working on my goals already? Is it because when it comes time to work on your goals, you don't feel like you know where to start? Or is it because when it comes time to work on your goals, you feel like you have other more important things to do? When you figure out that specific sticking point, it's a lot easier to move past it. If you don't have a weekly planning routine and it's something that you want to create, I do have a video that goes into detail about how to create a weekly planning routine. My number one tip would be don't overcomplicate it. It does not have to be intense. A weekly planning routine can take 10 minutes, 20 max. Idea number 6. You know how when you first set a goal or a goal first comes into your mind and you have this really strong picture of what it's gonna look like, you're filled with momentum, you have all of this energy that's driving you towards achieving this goal. And then naturally after a few weeks or so, that kind of fades. Unless you're intentional about bringing it back, which is why this idea is about having a mindful manifestation practice in your life. This is a practice that you can do once a week, but even once a day. You can tack it onto your weekly planning routine. And if the word manifesting gives you the ick, I get it. Replace that with any of these words. On my app Intention, I actually have a follow along mindful manifestation practice. I'm gonna create a new one as well so that there are options. But here are what I would say are the core ingredients of any manifestation process that's designed to bring back those feelings of excitement and momentum. Number 1 is reconnecting with your vision. Whatever it was that you first pictured in your mind when you started thinking about this goal, bring that vision back to mind, flesh it out, reconnect with that excitement and with that energy that you first had when you started thinking about this goal. And as a side note, if you didn't get that jolt of energy when this goal came to you, consider whether your heart is actually in it. This is one of the most vague things that I talk about when it comes to goal setting, but if your heart isn't in it when it comes to your goals, it's gonna be a lot harder for you to achieve them than that person over there whose heart is in it. Ingredient number 2 is addressing the obstacles. Visualizing is really nice and it's probably the most promoted activity when it comes to manifesting, but the research has shown that on its own, it's not that helpful. What is helpful is pairing visualizing success with noticing what your current obstacles are. Once again, this is asking the question, why am I not doing this already? What is blocking me? What is stopping me? And then it's creating some kind of plan to address that obstacle. The next ingredient is some kind of planning. So that could be creating a plan to address the obstacle. It could also just be breaking your goal down into baby steps so that you have total clarity on what you need to do to move forward. Ingredient number 4 is taking action. Now, this step kind of depends on what kind of goal you've set. So if you've set a goal to exercise 3 times a week or meal plan, and your goal is more habit-based, taking action might not make sense. But if your goal is more of a project goal, like create a website or launch your Etsy store, add to the momentum that's already in your manifestation practice by taking some kind of action. Starting is always the hardest part. Visualizing and planning, they feel really good and they are going to create momentum. If you just add a little bit of action in there, even if it's just 10 minutes, it's going to build on that momentum even more. If you are trying to upgrade your life by the end of the year, or maybe you're just getting set for your New Year's planning, this video is a really good first step. The next step would be to watch my video called 9 Ways to Create More Self-Discipline. That's more about the ongoing practices that you can bring into your life to create more discipline, for lack of a better word, and more consistency when it comes to working towards your goals. That video is going to be linked on the screen and down below. I appreciate you so much and I'll see you soon.